I'm so excited. I'm going to see one of my good friends, Miss Angela Fredrick. We are taking pictures for our new book title, our new book cover, and I can't wait to show you guys her place. She is a fantastic gardener. Angela is a local homesteader who does all her own composting. She kind of has a Charles Dowding style with wood chips. You can see they turned the cement mixer with some hardware cloth and zip ties, and she sifts this, and it's just perfect. It's spongy and wonderful. This is 3-year-old wood chips, no manure, no anything, just a pile of wood chips that was then sifted and allowed to break down. It is beautiful. She actually uses this for seed starting. For seed starting, usually you want something very light and very fluffy, and this is perfect. And it's also extremely microbial rich. It has a biome of our local area. You really just can't get anything better. You can see here she's got some fall seeds started in it, and her seedlings are doing great. They're growing wonderfully. And even in some of her piles that are 2 years old, you can see the squash are growing right out of it, and they are so happy. And she also directly planted some ground cherries and tomatoes, kind of like a hugelkultur style. And if I didn't say that right, I'm sorry. I'll put the words on the screen. But you can see digging not even that deep into the wood chips that have just been sitting. She doesn't cover them, nothing. She plants directly into them. These are her ground cherries. And they look beautiful. If you have the kind of space to do this kind of composting, this is amazingly easy and very low maintenance. So this is inside her tunnel. You see she has a pineapple here. Even though it's in ground, she still uses her homemade compost with it. She's got a lot of plants in here, and being able to use her homemade compost, in these giant grow bags, she still does not have to water like she does if she's using something from the store. She said she only had to water a couple times. And see her maypops? Those are Carolina maypops, and they are just beautiful. They make like a Carolina passion fruit. They're really yummy. And if you look over here, she has this giant rosemary, which she says she never waters. And she has got some carrots growing way down in this pot here. Now her grow bags are rather large, but everything looks so healthy, and that is contributed to that homemade compost. And this is a harvest of garlic that she pulled like mid-June. You can see this is just store-bought garlic. What a beautiful harvest this is. So this was store-bought garlic. Store-bought garlic is normally a soft neck, and you can tell a lot of it is. Every once in a while you'll get a hard neck in there. And you see how this one split? That was just from leaving it in too long. But these are all lovely and healthy, and she's drying them like in the most perfect way. I did not dry my garlic as well. Last year I braided it, and we had a little trouble with moisture. So hers in this cool, dark environment on this grate, this will last her a long time. This is beautiful. As we were walking around, she was showing me her calla lilies. Now, do you see how some of them the leaves are twisted? She was telling me about a pest that comes, and they're like little worms, and they lay their nests, or make nests, and lay eggs and eat the inside of her calla lilies. So if anybody has calla lilies and knows how to combat this, leave it in the comments, because she definitely was not up for spraying all of it, because she has her food garden very close to these, and she just doesn't want the spray everywhere, and that's just not good for the environment. Here are her onions. So she multi-sowed her onions, little Charles Dowding style, and she's had great success with pulling just one and the other ones continuing to grow and getting a nice size, and then pulling one more and they grow and get a little bigger, and that way she gets the most use out of that space. And she has really loved doing that. I really want to try that this year. And she multi-sowed the seeds together and just planted them out directly like that all together. Now she has her grapevine back here on this netting trellis, which these nets are fantastic. They're actually for flower farmers to lay them horizontally and to keep the stems of the flowers straight, but I have used them vertically in the past, and I love that she is. However, she said a lot of Japanese beetles have been really bothering the grapevines, and she just comes out there with a cup every so often and shakes them in there. You can see her little cup is full. Look at that damage. Japanese beetles, and that's one of those things, they're just, you need to go out there and get them off yourself. There's not a whole lot you can do besides that. We are walking over to her berry patch. So you have heard me talk about my wine berries, so this is who I got them from. Here's her little jungle of wine berries that you can see they are just everywhere. And this will be a huge harvest, lots of wine berries on here. And also in here she has blueberries and blackberries, and you can see she is talking to me about pinching the tips. So when you pinch the tips, it causes them to basically shoot out more shoots along the canes, and that will make more berries, because raspberries, and especially wine berries, will mostly produce on the ends of the cane. So by pinching that off, you're kind of get more shoots that will basically have more ends that will give you more berries in the end, so a bigger harvest. I'm very excited to go home and pinch all my wine berries. Here are her blackberries. She has some that are ready. Now, where we live in South Carolina, we have a lot of wild blackberries, and that poses a problem when you plant cultivated blackberries. You can see these are thornless, because if they are close enough that they will cross-pollinate, it will lower the production of the blackberries that you bought, and nobody wants that. And just a little gardener tip, you can see the whole time we were walking around, she's carrying a net. That is to catch these little white moths, so they will lay eggs, especially on your brassicas, and they will just tear them up in a heartbeat. So I love the fact that she carries around a butterfly net to catch the moths. I am totally going to start doing that. This is her bay laurel tree. Bay laurel makes bay leaves. And can you see just how massive this thing is? Now, we are on the border in like zone 7B where this can roughly grow, but hers overwinters just fine, she says, and you can see how massive it is. She said when she first got it, she was covering it up and babying it. She goes, but I don't anymore, and it just keeps going. And she's getting really good at taking cuttings and rooting them from this, which is just wonderful. Another little gardening tip, you see her chair. You'll see chairs randomly, and you'll even see chairs randomly in my garden. The best thing for a gardener, or for the garden, is the gardener, and it is so important to have a chair for you to just sit in your garden. It is the most magical thing, and your plants just thrive off of you being there. So here we're talking about propagation. If you're on Pinterest, I'm sure you've seen these little things. They go around the stem, you fill them with soil, and it creates roots on the stem, so you don't have to detach it from the mother plant before it is able to fend for itself with its own roots. Now, she was talking to me about them and said they're great, but they're hard to keep moist, and moisture is a huge component in propagation. And even though you do need to keep things shaded when you propagate them, she had the black, because it was black, it got really, really hot. So she's thinking about wrapping maybe tinfoil around it, or something to reflect the light so they don't get quite so hot. So she was pointing out to me along the border here with the big flat leaves, that is actually turmeric, and she has that growing all throughout here, and I thought that was really neat to have food interplanted with your flowers. Now what she has planted all around here is mountain mint. It gets pretty tall, but look at the flowers on that, and it is just pollinator central. It is beautiful, and it does smell pretty minty. I'm not sure if this is mint that you could really use for tea or not, but she said it was called mountain mint. and I couldn't believe the amount of pollinators she had all around it. I will say her neighbor keeps bees and has quite a few hives, so that is of a great benefit to any gardener. So she has all of these here and keeps them lovely just for the pollinators. She has once again beautifully worked some food into her borders. These are some melons. They look great. They're growing really well under the mountain mint. And just a little farther down, she has some squash, and she caught some of the moths. And some more turmeric. That's what these big broadleaves are. You can see, look at her squash growing so lovely in there. I'm loving the shade, which I always thought squash was full sun, but hers are growing wonderfully in the shade all together in this border. Something that I love that she's done is there's no such thing as a monoculture in nature. So the fact that she has all these different plants all in the soil together, all those microbes are growing and are there together, all feeding off of each other and helping each other, because certain microbes go to squash plants and certain microbes go to mint plants and watermelon plants, and it all needs to be there though, because they all help each other and benefit each other. We are now walking up to her main garden, and right next to her main garden is where the dump truck dumps all the wood chips. She has many dump trucks come and they just drive up and dump them. But even the fact of just having that pile of decomposing wood right next to your garden, the microbial effect of that, I'm sure just adds and enhances her garden so much. So here we walk into this beautiful jungle. I love jungles. It just makes my heart so happy. This is how I garden too. So as we were walking through the garden, we talked about varieties and how they're growing and the differences of them and what takes over and what doesn't. However, because my camera got so incredibly hot, because it's the midsummer, it's a very hot day, the audio cut off, so I'm going to do the best I can to remember. However, then we also lost some footage of her garden because the video cut off because of the heat, so I had to let the camera cool down. But do you see how massive her sunflowers are? They are practically trees. So as you can see, she is an amazing interplanter. She has all kinds of sorrel and things along the bottom for weed coverage, and she even has like some kale. She has beets growing in the summer, which beets just do not grow here in the summer. They bolt. But because she planted them, these are all beets in such shade of her sunflower forest, they are doing just fine. And I'm sure her microbially rich compost only adds to their benefit. Something Miss Angela does just so well is flowers in her food garden and food things in her flower beds, because she knows just how much they all need each other and the benefit of the different microbes when they're all planted together. Now, I think this was the favorite thing of mine from her garden. These are blackberry lilies, and after they bloom, they actually twist up into these little, they look like little candies, little twists. And they are just gorgeous. I love them so much, and I'm going to have to grow some next year. These are 4 o'clocks. My daughter has a favorite poem by Laura Ingalls Wilder about 4 o'clock, so she gave me some seed. And sometimes seeds are literally that easy. You just have to go out there and pick them. Saving seed does not have to be super hard. It just depends on what you're saving, and saving seed is just such a vital part of gardening. So here are some more of her multi-sowed onions. She was showing me how big they actually get and how much space it will actually use. So she can get 3 onions out of about that size space instead of 1 onion that then has to be spaced so many inches apart from another. Really gonna try this multi-sowing onions and leeks and all kinds of, I don't think garlic. I think it's mostly onions and leeks and green onions that it's done with. So let's talk real quick about how she uses wood chips in her garden. So wood chips in the paths, but not on top of her actual garden beds. If you add fresh wood chips on top of the garden beds, it will rob nitrogen as it breaks down. However, her already broken down wood chips, even if it's not completely broken down, won't be robbing nitrogen from her plants. As long as that process is already much underway, the microbes are already present, the fungi are already present, and that is only going to enrich your garden. We are now going to climb her wood chip mountain. It had to be 2 stories high, because she just has the trucks come and continue dumping it, and she will dig through it as she needs it and move it to different piles. They have a big tractor they can dig through it easily with. But we are going to walk up and over this giant pile. Isn't this amazing? Look at how much compost this can become. And we are going to walk into the forest behind her, because she has started to do some forest gardening with strawberries and blackberries and some really cool things. Now, what she said she was trying to do was they're taking their tractor and moving the wood chips and piling them thickly on top of this brush instead of bringing a bush hog back here and just chopping it all to death. They're trying to just cover it thickly enough with wood chips and keep it covered. That way eventually she can extend the garden and plant into it if she wants, and it kind of tames some of that wildness in the back that isn't quite all edible food and space that she wants. But you can see here where the tractor tires are, they're having all this compost that's already broken down, and the wildwood is already wanting to grow in it. But you can just see that thick layer of compost. That is about 2 inches deep of beautiful soil that they want to grow in. And we went to the side of this big pile, and you can see we dug into it, and you can't see it on camera very well because the worms were so fast. There are so many worms in there. So all those added worm castings are just beautiful. But you can even see, you don't have to dig down that far, and you're already finding beautiful compost, beautiful dirt that is just microbially rich, full of fungi, especially because the wood chip compost is filled with fungi. Fungi is the network on which your plants talk to each other and share nutrients and all those wonderful things. Fungi is vital for a healthy garden. Now, as we walked back into the woods, you can see they put the wood chips down, they were letting them decompose, and she has already planted strawberries back here. And the strawberries are doing great. She has a netting on them just to keep the bugs out, because she just doesn't come back here as much. As you can see, you have to walk over a mulch mountain to get here, but they are just lovely. And they are growing and thriving well in all of this. So you can see this compost, because the tractor had come and scraped it, this is her wood chip compost, but it's also mixed in with some of our red clay. So where we live in South Carolina, we have a lot of red clay. Clay is actually great for gardening, except the fact that it gets compacted, but it has very nutrient dense, very mineral dense. It is really, really great as far as what plants want. However, the compaction makes it hard on the roots. So if you can fix the compaction with something like this, adding the organic matter to it, that is going to give you the best start for your garden that you could possibly ask for. Now here she has a pile of fresh wood chip and leaves. So this is an arborist that came with tree trimmings. Now this, she said, gets hot really, really quick if it has a lot of the leaves in it, because all the leaves are fresh leaves. And it did. I dug in there and I had to pull my hand out quickly. Like it was hot. And I did not have to dig very far. But all those fresh leaves are just going to make it break down that much quicker and add that much more organic matter to your garden. And this doesn't have anything done to it. So this will just sit here exactly as it is, uncovered. The rain will rain on it and the sun will beat down on it, and it is a large enough pile that it will just break down by itself. Now this is what it will look like after 3 years. You can see, look at those worms that are just all over the place. This is ready to go for your garden. So I hope you guys learned something. I always learn so much from Miss Angela. She is amazing. Thank you for being in her garden with me today, and we'll see you next time.